Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to just keep holding for another few minutes. We've got a couple minutes until 10 here, so we'll just be allowing people to join us here on the call for the next couple of minutes. So thanks for being here today. Good morning and welcome to those of you just joining us. We're just holding to allow people to join the meeting here for another minute or two. So thanks for being here today. Good morning to those of you just joining us. We are going to hold for just one more minute to see if there's anyone else going to join us today for the call. I'm just admitting people here from the waiting room yet. So thanks for being here and your patience as we get everybody logged in and get their technology up and running, and we'll get started here in just a minute or so. Okay, well, it looks like we're closing in on 5 after, and so I'm going to go ahead and get started today. If anyone else joins us, I will just have to pause and let them in as they join. But I wanted to thank you all for being here today. My name is Rachel Cassidy Watkins. I am the Director of Programs and Donor Services with Truman Heartland Community Foundation. And today we will be discussing our grants programs, as it is officially grant season here at the foundation. Truman Heartland Community Foundation is very proud to be the stewards of legacy gifts that have been left to the foundation to do good in our communities through our competitive grant making programs. And so today we're going to talk about our 2 grant making programs, our Jelly Family Foundation for Children's Education and our community grant making program. So this year we will have over $300,000 available between the 2 grant making programs. So today's discussion, we are going to have a quick overview of our 2 grant making programs, take a preview of the online applications, which are live and posted right now, and then also have time for an in-depth discussion with your questions so that we are as available and transparent as we can be about our grant making programs. So as I mentioned, we have 2 grant making programs at the foundation, the Jelly Family Foundation for Children's Education and our community grants programs. Organizations are welcome to apply for both the Jelly Family Foundation and the community grants programs, but not with the same proposal. So you would need to submit a proposal for one program for one of our grant making programs, and then a different proposal for another aspect of your organization's work to the other program if you were going to apply to both. So we are trying to be very transparent about our interest in receiving general operating support applications this year. There is a broad movement of funders in the country moving away from restricted support for nonprofits and moving towards less restrictive, more general support of organizations. And COVID, of course, has impacted everything, but it has really accelerated this move in the funding community towards general operating support in our grant making. And so we have always accepted general operating support applications, but we wanted to be very clear this year and be just as clear as we can about the opportunity to apply for general operating support, since COVID has impacted everything. We know that, time and budgets and everything has been affected. And so we want to be sure that we are as transparent as we can to share with you that we will accept your general operating support application. Also, we'll accept your program support application if that's of interest to you. So our first grant making program is the Jelly Family Foundation for Children's Education. It is obviously specific to children's education, and we think of that as being anything all the way from early childhood education all the way up through traditional post-secondary education. In the past, children's education was also an area of interest in our community grant making program, but we have removed that area of interest from community grants. And so all proposals which are to do with children's education should be submitted to the Jelly Family Foundation this year. So for the children's education applications for the Jelly Family Foundation, proposals are encouraged that demonstrate collaboration with other organizations, a new and innovative approach to education, or a focus on at-risk youth succeeding. In the past, one or more of these criteria had been required for the Jelly Family Foundation. We have removed that requirement, and these are simply criteria that are encouraged at this time. So eligible organizations to apply for grant funding from Truman Heartland Community Foundation include any 501c3 nonprofit organization, units of local government, such as police departments or parks and recreation departments, or public education institutions such as local schools or school districts are eligible to apply. Organizations must be able to show how they are supporting either the communities or the citizens of Eastern Jackson County or suburban Jackson County. And new to our grant making programs this year is Cass County. We have a strategic goal at the foundation to provide service to the Cass County area because there is not a community foundation available to them in that county. And so we have a strategic focus on incorporating them into our service area. So that is new this year. So any organization from the Eastern Jackson County on down through kind of the southern Jackson County, suburban Kansas City area or Cass County are eligible to apply this year. For the Jelly Family Foundation, the average grant amount is $5,000, and our awards are eligible for funding for up to 3 consecutive years. For renewal, a full application is required each year, but one particular program can be eligible for funding for up to 3 years. Organizations are still welcome to submit applications if their funding has been 3 years in a row. For that 4th year, you're still eligible to submit application, but we would request that you either take a break from requesting funding or submit an application for a different program or a different aspect of your programming for that 4th year. And the purpose of this guideline in our grant making programs is really just to ensure that we continue to receive a broad group of applications every year and don't get to the point where we become just a counted upon budget line item for any one program. We want to make ourselves available for funding to a broad swath of organizations. So that's the purpose of this rule. It is not a hard and fast rule. Exceptions are taken on a case-by-case basis. So if you feel you have a reason that you would like to float for receiving an exception to this rule, please do reach out to me and let me know. And for 2021, we have approximately $140,000 available from the Jelly Family Foundation for funding this year. Applications for the program are due on Monday, March 15th. We are moving back to our normal timeline for grant making this year. Last year, we had changed up our timeline quite a bit due to COVID and trying to speed our funding up. So the normal timeline is in place again this year with notifications for the recipients of the Jelly Family funding in early July, and then the grant awards being awarded at our grants luncheon in November. We are crossing our fingers really tight that hopefully by November, the vaccination efforts have taken enough hold in our community that we may be able to come back together in person. So won't that feel like a treat at that time? So that's when we will be awarding the funding in November, and then final reports on the funding are due after the program concludes or after 12 months, whichever comes first. So at this time, that concludes the details about the Jelly Family Foundation program. So I'm happy to take any questions. If you're interested, you may go ahead and unmute yourself and let me know what I can answer for you. Okay, seeing none at this time, we'll move forward and dive into the community grants program. So our community grants program is our more broad-based grant making program, and these are the areas of interest that we entertain for grant making in our community grants programs: arts and culture and historic preservation, community betterment, which is anything from improving neighborhoods, youth development, leadership programs, violence prevention, racial equity programming, anything of that nature that you could characterize as being meant to improve a community. Adult or non-traditional education, as I had mentioned, we have removed children's education as an area of interest from this program because we have a specific fund available for children's education through the Jelly Family Foundation. But we do want to support agencies who are interested in receiving funding for adult or non-traditional education still through community grant making, as that is a strategic area of interest for the foundation as well. Also available are the areas of interest of health and human services and wildlife conservation in the state of Missouri. And this is because of a specific fund that we received, that this funding is not restricted to our Eastern Jackson County, suburban Jackson County, or Cass County areas. The funding came to us with the restriction that it be meant for the whole state of Missouri. So that is the one caveat to our service area there. So again, it's that same group of organizations that are eligible to apply for community grant funding: nonprofits, 501c3 nonprofits in good standing with the IRS, units of local government, public education institutions. And again, it's that same geographical area: the Eastern Jackson County, Southern suburban Jackson County, and Cass County area, with that one caveat being the statewide funding for conservation. Average grant amount for community grants is also $5,000. Awards are also renewable for up to 3 years. And again, that's not a hard and fast rule. If you do have a program that you feel might be eligible for continued funding due to a specific need or a specific situation, please do reach out to me. I'm happy to have those conversations. And the total available for 2021 through community grant making is $190,000. We're so pleased to announce that we received a very generous $2 million estate gift recently that is vastly increasing our community grant making budgets. So we've got $60,000 additional dollars available through that fund this year for community grant making. So pleased that we have nearly $200,000 available through community grants this year. Applications for community grants this year are due Monday, March 29th. And this process we take a longer look at the community grants and make our funding notifications in early October, and then award the grants during the grants luncheon in November. And again, the final reporting is due after the program period concludes or after 12 months, whichever comes first. And The reason why we take a longer look at the community grants applications is because we involve our Youth Advisory Council students in our community grants reviews as part of their quote unquote School of Philanthropy here at the foundation. We invite them to take part in our review cycle. So we assign the teams from the Youth Advisory Council applications that have to do with children and families. So if you have submitted a proposal that's to do with supporting children or families, I may reach out to you to ask if you'd be willing to host a site visit with the Youth Advisory Council students so that they can ask questions about your application and learn more about your agency as part of our review process. Once they have done those site visits, then they do come back to report to our grants committee, which is comprised of our board and advisory board members, and are the ones responsible for making funding determinations for our grant making program. So the Youth Advisory Council really are an integral part of our funding decisions for the community grants program. This is entirely optional and will not affect your funding status if you decide to decline the invitation. And these requests do happen during June and July for the site visits. And so we're not sure at this time what the format will be, whether we'll be able to conduct them in person or if we will need to utilize Zoom to do them again this year as we did last year. So that's up in the air at this time. But as I mentioned, it's entirely optional on your end. But I have heard over and over from many agencies that it's an enjoyable experience because our Youth Advisory Council students really are the cream of the crop, intelligent and really active in our community grant making process. So that is the overview for the community grants program. Happy to take any questions that you all may have at this time about community grants.
This is Carol Freebird. I want to clarify one thing that I want to make sure I wrote down correctly.
Sure.
You said that in the community grants, they can be renewable up to 3 years. Did you say that you need to apply each of those years separately?
Yes.
Okay. All
yes.
Right.
So renewals for both of our programs are welcome. So programs that have received funding in the past are eligible to receive continued funding, but a full application is required for each of those years renewals.
And will we be notified that it's time to renew if we've received a grant? Do you send out something that says it's time to renew again?
No, we do not. We just open the process and hold this event for organizations to come hear about our grant making program again this year. So you will not receive any personalized contact from the foundation about renewing your award, but you are welcome to submit an application for renewed funding each year.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. May I take any other questions at this time?
Oh,
Rachel?
She can't see.
Yes.
This is Candy from the Symphony. For those of us who have a fiscal year from July 1 to June 30th, when we submit our budget for our organization, do you want us to do it for the year that we are going to be going into our proposed budget, even though it hasn't been approved by our board yet? Or do you want it to do it for the budget that we have at the time of the writing of the grant?
That's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up, Candy. I would counsel that we would want to see a budget for your organization that has been approved by your board for your application.
Okay. But if our board's not going to approve our next year's budget until May or June, but our application's due in March, should we just use our current year's budget?
I would think so, yes. We would want to see something, I think, that has been approved by your board. So you may make a note that it is for the year that's currently happening, and you may take the opportunity to just note that for us. But I do think that it would be helpful for the committee to see an operating budget that has been approved by your board.
Okay, because of COVID, our 2 years look totally different. So
yes, that's true. I guess that's true. COVID is just impacting everything, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Figure it out.
we'll figure it out.
Okay. I'm happy to have further conversation with you about this, and that's a general offer for everyone on the call as well. I will close this call with my contact information and invite you to reach out to me if you do have specific questions such as these. You know, in the normal times, I would say let's meet for coffee and talk about your questions, but at this time we'll just have a Zoom and have coffee together over Zoom and talk about those questions. But that's a general offer for anyone involved. I'm happy to troubleshoot or talk through your thoughts about your proposal at any time. So please do reach out with me with questions, okay? All right, any further questions at this time before we move forward? Okay, I'm gonna keep going then, if I can get my presentation going again. Okay, so here's a few helpful hints that we do offer for you all. First of all, be specific in your application. We do really, whether you have a general operating application or you are applying for program support, we do really appreciate specific details about your organization and or program. So if you can be very specific about the people that you serve in Eastern and suburban Jackson County or Cass County, specific communities, specific school districts, schools, zip codes, those kind of things to help substantiate really how you plan to reach the communities or citizens of Eastern, suburban, Cass County, Eastern Jackson County and Cass County. Those really do help our board of directors committee make funding decisions. Second hint is that I truly am here to help. So please do reach out to me if you have questions. I'm happy to have those conversations with you. My third hint for you is to do with our donor family at the foundation. We do have a very active family of donor advised fund holders at the foundation. And we, when we are, because of our modest grant making budgets, when we are able to fund a proposal at some level but not fully fund it, we do circulate the opportunity to help fill the gap in those fundings with our donor advised fund family. So if you are receiving partial funding for your award, there may be a donor who will step in to help fill the gap to help get you towards full funding for your award. So in the past several years, we have garnered up to $60,000 worth of additional funding from our donor family. So you may come to the grants luncheon in November and receive funding above and beyond what you thought you were going to be receiving because of the generosity of our donor family. So that's a fun way for us to offer the connection between your agencies and our donor family at the foundation. And as I said, they've been very generous in the past several years. They enjoy the opportunity to help support the good work that you do through our competitive grant making program. Okay, so the next thing I am going to do, I'm going to stop this screen share, get my presentation out of the way and hop on over to our website because I do want to show you how to access the applications and take a look at the applications with you. So oh, I did just see that there's a question in the chat. Let me take that question here. Can you apply for operating support if you have a project in schools that doesn't involve education of children? Absolutely. So a good fit for that kind of proposal would be our community grant making program under the health and welfare category. And the way that I like to talk about delineating what would be a good fit for the education fund, the Jelly Family Foundation Fund versus a health and welfare proposal would be really what the goals of your proposal are. Our application asks for you all to identify the goals that you hope to achieve through your proposal. And so I always like to point out that if your goals around your proposal are about increasing educational outcomes for students by your program or by your organization, that's a really great fit then for the Jelly Family Foundation. If your program is focusing on school children, will take place in the schools, but the goals around that program are really more to do with the caring for those children's health and welfare, then that would be a better fit for the health and welfare program. Does that make sense? So I like to counsel just a focus on what the goals of the proposal itself are in order to make that delineation for your opportunity. Here's another question in the chat. Good questions, everyone. Keep them coming if you've got them. If the request is for capital improvement, are there special consideration for matching support, public or private? Absolutely. So that's a great question. We do always ask in our applications how much support you have requested from other funding sources. And so that the opportunity to make a match or to help you receive a match from, federal funding match or something like that, we always love to capitalize on that to help stretch our grant making dollars even further and increase their impact by helping you catch a match where it's available. So please do share those details for us. So that we know that this is an opportunity to make an even bigger impact through our grant making dollars. Those questions are in our applications each year. So great question. Any other questions at this time before we hop on into the applications themselves?
I had a really quick one. My name's Allison Kelly.
Sure.
We received funding last year for a summer program that had to be completely changed due to COVID. When we are applying, if the original summer program is still the same, do we go for a renewal or do we write a new program since what we used the funds for in 2020 was totally different?
That's a great question. We did give our grant recipients last year with current grant funding the opportunity to retool the use of their funding along the lines of being less restrictive. We knew that all of a sudden there was this huge unforeseen budget crunch and delivery of programs couldn't happen the way that it was planned. So it really, our applications are not different based on whether it's a renewal or if it's a new application. We would, there is a place though for uploading an interim or final report into the application. So if you were a recipient of an application last year and you have ongoing funding or funding that hasn't been reported on yet, we do ask you to upload an interim or final report into the application. So for this year's process, so that our committee is able to take stock of what the results of your programming from last year's award were. And so we certainly do acknowledge that we did give agencies the opportunity to transfer their funding that was program specific into general operating support. We would just want to see a report on those happenings, okay? Great questions. Any other questions at this time? Okay, I am going to screen share again and pop on over to our website so that I can walk you through our applications. Are you guys seeing our website at this time? Did the screen share work okay? Okay, always want to make sure. So this is our website, thcf.org is our website. Over here on the left, you can pop out the navigation bar and you will see that there is a grants and scholarship seekers section. So clicking on the grants page takes you over here to our competitive grant making website. So all of the information that has been presented today is posted here. You can see down here further, there's a statement about general operating support, and then there are drop-down menus here for both the Community Grants Program and the Jelly Family Foundation Program that list everything that I talked about with you here today. So if you ever need to refresh your memory or look back at some of the information that is out there, it's here on our webpage for you.
Yeah, nailed it.
Additionally, there is also a button here in each of these drop downs. In addition to
Okay, so you're right. Mark it on your calendar.
Thank
you guys could go ahead and mute yourselves. That would be helpful. I'm trying to find. I think I found it. Okay, sorry for the interruption. So there are buttons here on the main part of our grant making page, but also within each of these drop down menus to make application and click into the application portal itself. General note, we have a brand new grant making portal this year. We are undergoing a whole transformation of our technology at the foundation this year. So if you've ever undergone that, we welcome your well wishes as we rebuild everything. But we do have a new grants portal this year that is brand new. And so everyone will need to create a new portal access. So you'll need to establish an account in the portal, choose a password and all that jazz. Even if you had an account previously, the two systems do not talk to each other. So everything that lived in the old portal, your application and your account and all of that information has just been lost at this time because we've switched technology providers. So it's a blank slate for everyone this year. You'll need to set your password and all that jazz to access the applications. I'm going to take just a few minutes here to walk through the application for the community grants program. I won't walk through both programs because the applications are very, very similar, and I'll point out the differences between the Jelly Family Foundation and the community grants application. It doesn't warrant walking through both of them since they're so very similar. So here is the community grant application itself. So it asks for your organization's name, your website if you have one, federal tax ID number, asks for you to fill in whether you are a 501c3 or a unit of local government, that kind of thing. If you've got a tax exemption letter from the IRS, it asks you to upload that here. That is an optional field because we recognize that not everyone, not all of the types of entities that we allow for grant making do have a separate application, or I mean separate IRS letter. Asks for your mission statement, and it asks for a brief history of your organization. It asks for an upload of a board listing showing a list of their names, profession, or skill set if they're retired. We do not ask for a full biographical listing from everyone. We just like to see the high-level details of your board. Organization summary annual operating budget, and a statement of financial position upload as well. The next field is an auditor's report, which asks you to upload the letter that shows the results from your auditor. If you have one, it is not required because we do understand that audits can be a financial burden for agencies and they're not required in any sense. So if you do not have one, it is not required in our application. If you do have one and you have a nice clean auditor's letter that you want to share, that's great. You can upload it here as well. Amount of funding requested, and then funding requested from other sources, as we just mentioned. Here in the request classification is where we come upon one of the differences between this application for community grant funding and the Jelly Family Foundation, because it asks for you to classify your request. Within the Jelly Family Foundation, it doesn't ask this question because children's education is the only field that is allowed. So you can classify that here. This question is a little bit different as well. This exists in the community grant application, but not in the Jelly Family Foundation, because obviously we're hoping that you're only serving children through your children's education program. This question does exist in both applications. Asks you to identify the group of children that you will be serving. So here, geographical area served, this is a click all that apply, and it makes note that the majority of our funding needs to be utilized to serve the communities or citizens of Eastern and suburban Jackson County and Cass County, with that new eligibility for Cass County this year. Here in the community grants funding, obviously that wildlife funding that's for the state of Missouri is shared as well. So that's a click all that apply question. Collaboration details. If you are collaborating with another agency on the creation or implementation of your programming, you can upload a letter of support from your collaborating agencies here to help give substantiation to that collaboration. So I often get the question of, is it required that that agency be another nonprofit? It is not required that that agency be a nonprofit. We do recognize that sometimes there are corporate partners for some agencies in the delivery or creation of their program. So that would be great. One thing I would like to share with you about what this should look like, it doesn't really help us if you have an agency that's not intimately involved with the creation or implementation of your program, just to upload a letter of support from another agency about how much they like your program or think it's great that it exists. What we're looking for is really kind of more along the lines of a memorandum of understanding kind of document that really shares the specifics about your collaboration and how the two agencies are working together to create or implement that opportunity. So I like to give an example from a Jelly Family Foundation application that had really great collaboration that was from several years ago, but it was a partnership between the Blue Springs School District and the Kansas City Zoo. The two agencies collaborated to create a kindergarten readiness screening program utilizing the animals at the zoo. So they created the kindergarten, the pre-K teachers, and the zoo education staff created a screening curriculum that then students went to the zoo and took this screening curriculum while visiting the zoo and talking about the animals to help identify the students that needed additional supports to be able to be ready for kindergarten on time. So that's the kind of collaboration details that we're really seeking here if you've got them. If you do not have that kind of collaboration detail, it's not required in either of our programs, but it is obviously looked well upon if you're collaborating with other agencies in the community. So that gives you the opportunity to share those details with us. As I mentioned before, if you have an interim or final report on other funding that has been received and not reported on, if it was, if the timelines of things are such that if you received your funding in, in last year and a year has not yet passed or your program has not yet concluded, we would ask for an interim report. If that year has passed or your program has concluded, we would ask for that to be updated here so that the committee can see the progress of your application. So here's where our new program, our new grant making portal gets kind of cool for us because it allows us to be smart about the questions that we ask from you based on whether you're requesting general operating support or whether you're requesting program support. So based on the answer that you give to this question here, general operating support or program support, the next set of questions will populate based on that answer. So if you are requesting general operating support, the next set of questions asks you to identify a start date and an end date of a grant period, keeping in mind that the grant funding will not be awarded until November. So it's applicant defined, obviously, but an easy way to think about it would be from January through December. So you receive your funding in November, get yourself ready to go and launch your program in January. That's kind of the timeline that makes the most sense based on when our funding is awarded in November. Total operating expenses for your agency. Then strategic plan. If you have a strategic plan document, we ask to see that to help give our committee context around what your agency has for its goals for itself for the time period currently underway. We ask for a broad overview of your agency. Please provide a description of your organization's current programs and services so that we can get a context for all of the operations of your organization if you're asking for operating support. In addition to that, we ask for goals, objectives, and outcomes. What are your organization's high-level goals, objectives, and outcomes, and how are you evaluating yourself against those goals? How do you determine whether you're successful in reaching your goals or not? And then plans for organizational sustainability. Please give us details about how your organization works towards keeping itself going every year. So on the flip side then, if you are if you indicate that you're applying for program support, then it populates a list of program questions for you. So the program name, program start and end date, and again, it's that November funding cycle. So thinking an easy way to think about it is from January through December of the year following receiving funding. Then program description. This is the section that I like to dub the elevator speech about your program. In 100 words or less, tell us what this program is. And then this next question is the goals for your program. Please tell us what the actual goals that you have identified for that particular program are and how you would define success for the program. And then here, how will the funding be used? This is where you can go into further detail about the program and identify exactly what portion of the program the funding will go towards, how many people you intend to serve, how you plan to reach out to those folks and find them and serve them, all that jazz. Then program evaluation. What measurement tools will you be using to evaluate your success against the goals that you have identified for this program? Total program expenses, program budget upload. This gives you the opportunity to upload a budget into the application for us to see. And then instead of organizational sustainability, there it is program sustainability. So as I mentioned, that application is very, very similar between the Jelly Family Foundation and the community grants application. So I'm not going to take the time to walk through the Jelly Family Foundation. Truly, the only differences are identifying an area of interest for the community grants, which is already chosen for the Jelly Family Foundation, obviously, and then identifying population served, whether that's adults or kids or both or whatever. Those questions are not asked in the Jelly application. So that's truly the only differences. So here is, oh, great. Jordan shares that they are using Foundant as well. So thank you for the offer to commiserate about our new program. It truly is awesome. And we are really excited about having this new technology available to us. But like I said, for those of you who have ever switched technology at your organization, there's always just a lot of bugs to work out as we get going and build everything. And you don't know what you don't know when you launch it. And so there's always bugs that you run into. So we're in the midst of all of that. So thank you. Please do reach out to me if you run into any bugs as you're looking at the applications. If you don't think that something seems to be working right, please let me know. I'm happy to double check our coding and all of that to make sure that the application is working correctly. So that is the overview of the applications. I am happy to take any further questions that you may have at this time about anything that we've talked about today. Okay, well, seeing none, I'm going to pop into a screen share again to show you my, oops, I gotta do this part first. Show you my contact information. I am happy to hear from any of you. As I offered, I'm happy to set up an appointment if you would like to have the opportunity to talk one-on-one with me about your thoughts about an application or any questions that you may have about the best strategy for presenting your proposal. Please do let me know. I'm happy to do that. Set up a Zoom call and we can chat, okay? All right, well, thank you all for being here today and for taking the time. We look forward to another great year for grant making this year with the foundation and with all of your wonderful agencies. Take care and have a great day.
Thank you, Rachel. Very thorough.
Thank you. Glad you could be here, Susie. Nice to see you.
Thank you.